But over the weekend, President Trump launching a massive airstrike on more than 70 terror targets in Syria. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth called it a declaration of vengeance meant to eliminate ISIS. Joining me now, retired four-star General Jack Keane. And General, look, this was retaliation for the deadly attack on U.S. forces in Syria. Do you support this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very comprehensive but nonetheless limited attack, on ISIS in Syria. I mean, clearly it doesn't reflect that this organization is somehow recovering and is a major threat to the United States. The caliphate was taken away from them in 2019 by the Trump administration that existed in Syria and also in Iraq. And we've kept a small, modest force there, along with the Syrian Kurds and the Syrian Arabs, to make certain that the organization did not grow and expand and become a threat again. And that operation has been successful. This is more a reflection of a single individual who was a part of the Syrian security forces, who was inspired by ISIS. They suspected him of his radical views and were about to remove him as a security force member when this attack took place. It's more of a reflection of ISIS inspiring somebody than it is of this organization growing in size and becoming a threat to the United States. The retaliation attack is appropriate to send a clear message to them and to the members of this organization that they're in danger if they move towards hurting the United States again.
All right, next one for you, General. The U.S. now pursuing a third so-called dark fleet oil tanker near Venezuela. An official telling Fox that it's trying to evade authorities by, quote, flying a false flag and under a judicial seizure order. Has there been any response from Maduro that you know of?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, this is all a pressure campaign, beginning with the demonstration of military force in the region, shutting down the narco-trafficking at sea, and beginning to take away the major revenue source that Maduro and Venezuela so depends on, the sale of oil. So here we are we're seizing ships that are coming out of Venezuela and stopping ships from going into Venezuela. And a lot of them, frankly, Ashley, are turning around and not going near Venezuela as a result of it. So that's already starting to have some effect. I applaud the administration here. They're demonstrating some patience and also some persistence here. This is about forcing Maduro to voluntarily resign and leave and take the exit that President Trump has offered him, or to have the people around him who lose confidence in the fact that why are we putting up with Maduro and have all this grief brought on us and pushing him out. That is a much better option than the other options that are available, certainly the use of force. But I do believe those options are on the table as well.
Very good. Another one for you, General. White House envoy Steve Witkoff and Ukraine's President Zelensky says they held constructive talks in Florida this weekend. Do you think we're going to see any meaningful progress with Russia before the end of the year? Or going into the new year, I guess. I mean, where's the state of play on this? Well, again,
President Trump here has been really persistent in attempting to achieve a peace. And I applaud his team for working so hard at this. They use the term constructive. I mean, that's diplomatic speak for progress, but things are yet to be resolved, and that's where we are. There's three pieces to this. The 20-point plan that was discussed in Geneva a few weeks ago. The issue there is territory, and are they willing to swap territory? The second issue, and this is critical to the first one, and that's security guarantees. And that's U.S. commanding a multinational force, an air, land, and sea component to that force to make certain that Putin does not reattack. And the third piece of it is economic. It's about the recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine itself. In all three of those, there's unresolved issues. So it's a work in progress. Whether we can get something done by the end of the holidays remains to be seen. Give them credit for sticking with this. Listen, my concern here has always been Russia. Ukraine wants peace. The United States wants peace. Russia has been voting for war. by their actions time and time again. That has been where they are. It remains to be seen if they have changed.
Last one for you, General. Senator Lindsey Graham has a warning about Hamas. Listen to this. I'll get your comment.
Hamas is not disarming, they're rearming. Hamas is not abandoning power, they're consolidating power. That's what the military intelligence people in Israel told me. That's what the IDF told me. That's what our own people told me. So I would urge President Trump to meet with Prime Minister Bibi next week and come up with a plan, put Hamas on a time clock. If they don't turn over their weapons and stop rearming at a date certain, I would unleash Israel on them.
So, General, is Hamas trying to rebuild their ranks, and can they?
Yeah, well, certainly they're doing everything they can to do that. There's about 5,000 of them left. A lot of them are teenagers that they've recruited, to be sure. They still have some seasoned fighters there. And yes, they want to rearm, they want to requip, they want to stay in power. That's a fact. President Trump said the last time that President Netanyahu was in the White House, even though they were announcing, remember, the 22-point deal, they said if Hamas doesn't disarm, and demilitarize, then certainly we would support Prime Minister Netanyahu going in there to finish it. The diplomatic effort is underway. I don't think anyone's going to stop that effort for the time being to see if it can work. All the signs are that there's not going to be a country that's willing to step up and disarm Hamas, given the fact that they're unwilling to do so. So I think down the road here, certainly, Prime Minister Netanyahu should be given a green light. He'll certainly want that at a time of his choosing, to be able to go in there and finish the job once and for all. The good news is right now, so our viewers understand, Hamas does not have the capability right now to seriously attack Israel in any way, shape, or form. That just doesn't exist. So that is a good thing. But we don't want them to get that capability once again.
Exactly. We'll leave it there. General Jack Keane, terrific stuff as always. Appreciate your knowledge, and Merry Christmas to you, General.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you and to the whole team there. Thank you.